For the last 15 years or so, since 2010, I've been doing this happiness talk in the very last part of the last class of the semester, especially my in-person classes. And that's, I do it as a sort of my parting gift to my students. So I hope you like it. So these are lessons that I've learned in life, which I call my 7 commandments. Now there's one more, so perhaps 8. And we'll try to come up with a model of happiness. So the first commandment is be happy always, no matter what. And don't see that yes, and don't let events, good or bad, disturb your state of bliss. Thank you. So what happens is that there's you somewhere out there at the center, right? And there are all these nice words that sometimes people, I hope a lot of the times that people say to us, some good events that happen in our lives, and all the sunshine that we get to see, right? And there are also times when the not so nice things happen, the thunder clouds and the thunder and the lightning and the insensitive words that people put our way, right? So then we have to navigate our space in between these things. So when we talk about happiness, it's just that doesn't really mean to be happy when things are perfect, right? How to be happy when things are not so perfect as well. And so that's why we have all these things going on. But the image here is of a lotus. When you think of a lotus flower, a lotus often blooms in water that is dirty or murky, and yet the lotus somehow rises above that. So it's not that the lotus's circumstances are perfect, but it's just that the lotus is able to see itself as being above circumstances which might be good or not so good that's going on. And how can we navigate that in the day-to-day lives? So that's one of the challenges that we have, and that's something that we could navigate. So whenever things are going well, right, we tend to have all these happy emotions. And when things are going not so well, when there are undesirable words, undesirable events, we have these not so happy emotions. Now emotions in themselves are not bad. Emotions make us human. Emotions make us real, right? But there's also this state of equanimity where it's about asking ourselves, can we be more stable as things go well and when things go not so well? Knowing that everything is cyclical. The nice things are followed by not so nice things, and the not so nice things are followed by nice things again. So our life revolves around these cycles of things which go well and don't go well. And it's all about learning to look at all those things from a level of distraction. It's like watching a movie. When we go to watch a movie, there are lots of things that happen in a movie, and we get part of the emotion of the movie, right? But at the back of our mind, we know that it's just a movie. So the question is, can we look at our own lives like watching a movie? That look at our own lives from a little bit of a distance, and to see things as they're happening, see things as they unfold, right? So trying to put this in the form of a research model. So here you have the external environment where the words could be good or bad. The events or the outcomes of events could be good or bad. And this external environment has some bearing on our happiness. But more important than that, this external environment also gives rise to an internal reaction. So we take that in a certain manner, whatever is happening around us, right? But if you look at it, this external environment is more like a glass, which can be thought of as a glass half full or a glass half empty. And based on this, we have some internal reaction. Now, if we put on the happy pair of glasses, we'll see the full part of our lives. And if we look at the unhappy pair of glasses, we'll see the empty part of our lives. Our life is what it is. There are some things that are good and some things that are not so good. So it's a combination of that. So what just matters is like how we look at it, right? And there's this Nepalese song by a nun, and she sings it very beautifully. She's a Buddhist nun, and the words mean that for the eyes that have flowers in them, the whole world is filled with flowers, And for the eyes that have thorns in them, the whole world is filled with thorns. So it's literally, what do we have in our eyes? The world is what it is, right? So what is important is that even though this external environment has a bearing on our happiness, how we react to what's happening outside can moderate the effect of this external environment on our happiness. So this is a very important relationship in terms of how we are able to change the effect of the external environment on us simply by looking at things in a certain manner, or learning to look at things in a certain manner. And that's the power that we have. We do not have power over this part. That's not where we have power over, but we have power over this part, and recognizing where the difference lies, right? So this internal reaction to events does have a bearing on our happiness. And if we are more stable in our minds, even when things are not so stable outside, then we actually can make an effect on the external reaction. And this actually, by doing that, we can actually affect the outcomes of events outside. Because what happens is, like what I've noticed is that if people have been mean to me or not so nice to me at times, right? But if I choose not to react at that moment, and if I go back and let that go, maybe sometimes it's not so easy to let go right at that moment, but you can leave the room or you can leave the scene, and if you choose not to react in a state of anger, then what happens is, and over a period of time, if you work on forgiving the person for what they said or what they did, rather than holding it against them, right? Then what I've seen is that, and if you actually look deal with the person from a state of compassion rather than out of anger, then what I found in my life is that those very people have actually become my biggest supporters in life. Because for the nicer people who are more friendly, it's easy to be friendly to friendly people, right? When somebody's friendly and you're friendly back to them. But when people are not friendly to you, and you still choose to be friendly with them, or you still choose to be compassionate with them, then something happens. Then they start thinking that, wait a minute, I was not so nice to this person, how come this person is still nice to me? And something shifts at that moment. And it's not that it'll always happen, but it's something where this change often brings about some sort of subtle transformation. And usually what they say is that when somebody is not so nice to you, that person needs a bigger hug than other friendly people. Because it's just that they might be going through bigger things which are not apparent outside. Or they may not have been getting the kind of love which most of us crave for. So in that sense, there's also a story of a princess who was walking by the river, and in that story there was a scorpion who was about to drown. So this princess is trying to save the scorpion from drowning, and every time she tries to save the scorpion comes back and stings her. And her friend says, like, what are you doing? Like, the scorpion is trying to sting you, and you're trying to save the scorpion. And she says, it's in the scorpion's nature to sting, and it's in my nature to save. So the scorpion is doing what is in the scorpion's nature, and I'm doing what is in my nature. So one of the things to remember is that whenever you're fighting someone, let's say you have a right cause and you're fighting, but we cannot become like the person we are fighting with, and it's very easy to become like that. So your methods and your means, if you're fighting for what is right, have to be different than who you're fighting for. Otherwise, very soon we'll become like the person we are fighting against if we use the same means. The second commandment is have zero expectations from every other person in the world and 100% from yourself. So when you don't expect, you'll never be unhappy, and everything you get is a bonus. Now, it might be impossible to have zero expectations or to have 100% expectations, so maybe replacing these with minimum and maximum might be fine. Having as less as expectations from other people and more from yourself can help. So John F. Kennedy once said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, right? So in a similar manner, ask not what people in your relationships can do for you, but ask what you can do for them. So when we start looking at our own life as an exercise in being useful, then each day there'll be a lot of opportunity to be useful. Now, one of the things I've found is that whenever you are sad, at any point in time, when you feel a little upset, or when you feel not so good, ask yourself one question. Are you sad because you wanted something and you didn't get? Or are you sad because you wanted to do something and you're not able to? Like, you're sad because you wanted, or are you sad because you wanted to contribute? So what I've found is that, and is that most of the times, if I'm in a state like that, it's because my mind is wanting something rather than giving. So if we look at our life as one of the wonderful gifts that we have, like we all saw in a website, so you all are such a bunch of talented people, right? There's a whole lot of talent that each one of you has, and like the amount of gifts that we have, right, as human beings. And it's our role in this world to give those gifts to the world, to share those gifts. And if we look at a life as an exercise in sharing what we have and the gifts that we have received, then it's all about giving. Then there is nothing to be unhappy about. But every time we turn ourselves into getting rather than giving, and we'll find that there's a disconnect, because if we I'm not saying that it's bad to get, it's all right to get, right? And all right to receive. But the unhappiness happens when there's a disconnectedness between wanting to receive and receiving. It's that want which is a problem, right? And I often thought about this, like Buddha, in Buddhism, right? When they talk about Buddha's life, one of the things which he says is that the world is full of suffering, and suffering is caused by human desire. And the cessation of desire is the cessation to suffering. And I thought, like, how can desire be bad? And I often thought about it, but it's not that desire is bad. It's okay to desire something, as long as we keep that desire to. It's okay if that happens. If it's also okay if it doesn't happen. But when we make a desire to take over our lives and our minds in such a manner that no matter what, I'll make sure that the desire is fulfilled. That no matter what is a problem, because that makes us make a lot of mistakes. And sometimes we do not respect other people or their boundaries or where they are in that no matter what, I must get that kind of thing. So if we switch our life to more about giving rather than getting, right, then we get back the power. So if you are in a situation where you're feeling sad or feeling depressed or wallowing in despair at something that's happening, then if you ask yourself that, am I sad because I wanted something? And then you can let your mind be sad, but you can spring up. It's and you have about a minute or two, like a rocket taking off, and you can get up and saying that I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to go for a jog. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to listen to some music. I'm going to take a shower. Anything that helps you, right? And you can get out of the situation of self-pity or that wanting or looking at things that are not happening. So flipping that power and recognizing the power that my life is to give, and the moment you turn your life into one of giving, you immediately get back the power. So here you have these external expectations of things, expectation from things happening outside, and then you also have some internal expectation from yourself of the work, right? And this external expectation leads to some outcome. It also leads to some work. But basing our happiness on the outcome often has a negative connotation to our happiness, has a negative effect on our happiness. Because what happens is, we only have a right to our work. Whenever you're doing, even for this class, whenever you're doing assignments or when you're doing anything, like for any work, you're working on a project, you're working on an artwork, you're doing anything, you have control over what you do. You do not have control over how other people perceive it, right? So we can only do our best. So recognizing that we have power over this work part, but not the outcome of that work, right? Because that is based on somebody else controls that. So a lot of times we get unhappy because we base our happiness on the outcome of a work and not on the work itself. So knowing that our part is to do the work, our part is to contribute, and our part and our rights are only until here, until the work, right? And the moment we do our work, then that's fine. Like, what happens after that? There's this ancient Chinese text called Tao Te Ching, and there's a very nice version of that with translations by Stephen Mitchell. And one of the it's a series of short poems, and one of the poems says that the master does their work and then forgets about it. So the idea is that do your work, do your level best, and then let go of it. When we do that, then we are fine, knowing that our control is only until the work part. Right? So when we base when expectation is from outside, from things outside, then that can have a negative connotation or a happiness. But when our expectations are internal, all about what can I do, what can I contribute, right? Then this often has a more positive effect on happiness and the work itself as well, rather than the outcome of the work. And the third commandment is never compare with those around you. Just given you 100% and don't worry about the results. So when I was in high school, I used to be pretty good at math, and most of the time I would get 100. And sometimes if I lose a point or two, my sisters would ask me, like, where did you lose at one point? And when I was in the 9th grade, there was this girl from the other class who came to my section, and she and I started competing. So she would, in one of the tests, like, she got an 87 or something, and I got an 88. And I was really happy that I got more points than her. And then I was thinking that what's happened to me. There was a time when I would be unhappy even if I lost a single point, and now I'm happy just because I got a point more than her. So that is what comparison does to you. It helps you settle for something less than what you are capable of. Because our lives, when we are born in this world, right, we are all individuals. We might be born into families, we might be born into localities, into regions, into countries, but we all have our own gifts. We are all individuals. And so what we get in life, what we do in life has actually nothing to do with what somebody else is doing with their lives. They are getting their fair share of nice things and not so nice things, and we're getting our fair share of what's nice and not so nice. And you realize that whenever we look at somebody else's life and look at, oh, that's so nice for them, things are so good for them, then we're just looking at the one easy part of the lives. We're not looking at the totality of the lives. And the moment we want to look at the totality of somebody else's life, right, we would not want to change anything at all. If you want to think of, like, would you like to change your life by anybody else's? The totality of who you are with somebody else's. And most of the time we'll say, no, I'm happy with who I am. We don't want to switch that with any other person, however privileged that person might seem, right? Because we value ourselves the way we are. And so comparing always makes us settle for something less than other people. We can, even if you need to compare, we can compare with ourselves. Have I become healthier than what I was 2 years ago? Am I doing more? Am I becoming slightly more disciplined than what I was? Or am I sleeping better? Or am I eating better? Whatever, right? You can set your own benchmarks to who you want to be. So the best comparison is with yourself, how you were like a month ago or a year ago. So comparison leads to external expectations, which negatively affects happiness. And this also negatively affects our internal reaction, because we tend to focus on things that we don't have rather than what we have when we compare. And sometimes that leads to feelings of jealousy. And the fourth commandment is everything happens for one's own good. So we get what is best for us. Okay. Now, when I was doing this talk many years ago, I think, maybe 2011, 12 sometime, a student came to my office later on, and she told me that she doesn't agree with this commandment. And she said that horrible things happen in life, and I don't need to be told that things are good in order to accept them. I can see things as horrible and accept them as horrible, right? And she's not wrong, in the sense that a lot of the times, a lot of things that are happening outside are very difficult and not so nice things that are happening. So the question is, all of these commandments are basically a mental model. Things, a way to look at life in a certain way, right? And it is just that when difficult things are happening, if looking at those things as difficult and something that you feel strong enough to accept, then that's fine, right? And that's okay. And there was this hospital where there was a board which said that this too shall pass, right? So, but knowing that everything is going to pass through, is going to move, um, then that is helpful to see. In my life, what I've seen is that around the year 2002 or so, like I used to be, when I was a software engineer, I was working for this bioinformatics company in Singapore. So there I was working with XML and Java, and we were looking at genomics databases. It was a really nice work where we learned a lot about all the genomics and bioinformatics. There was only one problem, is that there was no salary coming in. The company wasn't paying its employees. They had money issues, and for 7 months I think we didn't get paid. And so after that, when I left that company, and for many years I kept thinking that what was the good that came of it from me working in that company. And years later I did my PhD, and then I was applying for faculty positions in the US, and there was a professor, Jim Boffman, who's now retired, and he was chair of the search committee from Simmons that year. And I met him at a conference in Columbus, Ohio, and in 2008. And he told me that your profile looks really good, and I want my dean to meet you. The only thing is that we're starting a new program in health informatics at Simmons, which is a program with SLIS and other schools across campus, and we want somebody who also has that expertise. And then I was able to talk to him about all that I did as part of my job in that bioinformatics job years ago. And when I came for my campus visit as well, I had a separate meeting with the people who were working on the health informatics initiative, and I was able to answer all their questions. So it was something. So perhaps other candidates had the things that I had as well, but this extra that I had, which they needed, was because of that job in which I had a really hard time years earlier. So when do things make sense? We do not know at a certain point in time. My wife is a physician. She's a hematologist oncologist, and when we got married, we moved to Singapore. And there was only one problem in Singapore, is that Singapore did not recognize Indian medical degrees, so she could not work as a doctor in Singapore. So she had to stay home, and so after a while, she was thinking of preparing for exams for the US, for the UK, and then she started preparing for exams for the US. So for 3 years, she did not get a job as a doctor in Singapore. And as she was doing exams, she had to fly to the US for those exams. There was a step 1, step 2, medical licensing exams for the US. And ultimately she got a job as a doctor here, and then I joined her here. But had she gotten a job in Singapore at that point in time, then chances are that we would very much be in Singapore even now, and I will not be giving this talk in front of you right now today. So when difficult things are happening, you do not know where those things are leading to, right? I told you the story of Rama, how when he was about to become king, when his stepmother said that he should not be king, my son should be a king. Now the backstory of that is that there was a demon who was creating havoc on earth, and his name was Ravana. Okay? And that demon was there, and so they all go to the gods, and they tell them that, so what shall we do about him? So Vishnu, who is supposed to be the preserver of the universe, they go to Vishnu that, can you please do something about it? So Vishnu says, fine, I'll come down to earth as in the human form as Rama. So he comes down. So his job is to come down to save the lives of all the people who are in the forest, and also to kill the demon who was Ravana. But he was happily about to become a king. So when he's about to become a king, then the gods do not know what to do. So they said, okay, fine, let's go. And they go to the Saraswati, who is the goddess of learning, and they said, please do something about it. So Saraswati goes and sits on the tongue of Mantra, the maid, and she gets her to say those things, so that Rama, who is about to become king, cannot become king, and she can actually fulfill his mission for which he came to the earth, to go to the forest and then save all the people, and then go kill the demon. So basically, what that story shows is that we all are meant for a lot of bigger things in our life, and we are ready to settle for smaller things a lot of times. So when the difficult things happen, we're actually getting closer towards achieving a life's purpose and being transforming into the people that we are to become. So even if you look at the lives of a lot of great people, Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, any person in history, Mother Teresa, anybody who inspires you, you'll find that their life has had various important turning points. And a lot of the times, the difficult turning points are the ones which propel them into becoming the great human beings that we know them to be today. If things had been easy for them, it would not have led them to become, for those transformations to happen in their lives. So many of these tough phases are actually like polishing the diamond that happens. Okay. So here we have this external environment, the events which are not so nice, and the words that are not so nice. And our reaction rate is there as well. So things may not make sense in the short term, but eventually they do make sense. Right, so it's only about are we looking at things in the short term, and or are we, even if when things are going tough, are hard, if you look at our life as a whole and look at things from longer term, then we are able to tide over those difficult times, right? But you do need some coping mechanisms to tide through that difficult period when you're going through that. So the fifth commandment is live in the present moment. Don't worry about the future to take care of itself if you take care of the present, and don't worry about the past, and we can never change it. Now you might have realized that a lot of what we think, we spend most of our lives either in the past or the future, in the sense that our mind is thinking about what could have happened, what happened, and what you should have done differently or not done differently, and all of those things. So but if we look at it objectively, it's not the reality, it's what's already happened. Or we spend a lot of times into worry or anxiety or excitement, things about looking at things from the future, and again, that's in our imagination, that hasn't happened, right? So what really happens and what we only have control over is the present moment. Now, right here, right now, all of you in this room are the most important people in my life, because that's the only reality in my life right now. Maybe 20 minutes later, you will walk into to do different things, right? And then maybe if you take another class with me, I might see you again, or I might not see you again. We do not know, right? But at every point in time, the present thing that we're doing is the only reality we have. And that can be as simple as eating a meal, talking to a friend, working on an assignment, watching a movie, anything. Being fully present in what we are doing is the only thing that we really have control over, nothing else. Right? So if you forget everything else about this talk today, I'll say that the only thing to remember is there's nothing more important than the now. The present moment is all that we have. And keeping that in mind helps us cope with every phase of our life, because we always have the present moment, no matter what's happening. So here we have our internal reaction to things, but keeping our awareness to the present is one way to be centered. Now our mind really tries to play games with us. Our mind will always try to take us back to the past or back to the future. But a simple question to ask yourself is, if you're not so sure, so put your finger under your nostril and check if you can breathe, right? If you can breathe, that means you're alive. A lot of people are not, right? So it's since if you're alive, that's enough. That's like you're lucky to be alive, right? So being alive is the biggest gift that we have. And as long as we are alive, the moment we check that we are alive and asking ourselves, what am I doing right now? The moment we say, what am I doing right now, the mind's bluff will be called. Your mind is either going to the past or the future, and then you come back to the present moment. So, number 6 is, you can do the impossible. Remove the dust that's cloaking the power within you, and let your inner spark glow. And whenever we see greatness around, we see people who have removed more of this dust. So, this is actually a really great time in history, because a lot of the things that we would have wanted to do, we can do, because we are connected through technology with almost all the people in the world in ways. We can reach out to, if you do not have a certain skill set, we can connect with those people who have, and we can collaborate and make wonderful things happen. And some of the opportunities are also provided by AI now in order to be able to do things that humans could never imagine being able to do in the past. So even though AI has both the good and bad things, but there are opportunities as well, right? So here, when we look at people, we all have that same power within each one of us. It's just that some of us have covered that power with more of self-doubt, right? And when we look at the people who we call as great people today, there's not much difference between their lives or their struggles and our struggles. It's just that they have chosen to remove some of that self-doubt and overcome the fears that they might have had and shine brighter. Right? So removing this more of this dust, right, is the gift that we can give to ourselves. And not doubting any form of doubting ourselves in any way whatsoever. So here, the more of the dust that we remove, it leads to more of internal expectation, it leads to more confidence. And that leads to work, that leads to contributing, and that leads to happiness. Because now we are not really worried about what other people say or what other people think about us. It's more about what we think about ourselves and what we have to contribute and give to the world. And the seventh commandment is, for every person that you see, meet, and talk to, imagine that you're seeing, meeting, and talking to God. The essence is to identify with each person in the world as your own. Now you can take this word God and replace it with your favorite person on earth, right? And now imagine that every person you meet is this favorite person of yours. And the moment you do that, right, when I see a classroom full of people, I see all my favorite people in the room, right? When you are giving a talk in front of 500 people or 1,000 people, it doesn't really matter. You see all your favorite people. When you're walking on the street, you see your favorite people. When you are doing a job interview, you see the panelist or the interviewer as your favorite person. And when we do that, we are able to connect with people on a human level, irrespective of our physical differences, right? So the world starts looking like this a little bit of a lot of the people like me are everywhere, right? And you see more of that oneness. What that does is that it leads to lack of fear from anyone and identification with every single person. And that leads to self-confidence because there's no one to judge, there's no one to fear. Everyone is just like us, right? So taking all these commandments together, we find that you have these words and the events and which lead to happiness. So this was the first commandment of being happy always. And what I say is that even when we say being happy always, right? Let's say the always doesn't work. That let's say that you find yourself as sad, right? And then that's all right. That you're happy at times, and maybe not always. And maybe even if that happy word doesn't work, then you can even cross that out and just be. Just be with who you are. Just be with whatever you're feeling at any given point in time. Right? So being with the emotion is okay. So here you have the first commandment on being ever happy, and then the second commandment on no expectations. So we're commanding that with this one now. The third command, this is the second one. And we take the third commandment on not comparing, and the fourth commandment on everything happening for our good. And then we take the fifth commandment on being in the present. And then we take the sixth commandment on self-belief. So we put these together. Now at a certain point, this commandment says that look at everybody else as yourself, right? As part of you. So this external environment fails at the point because when you start seeing everyone as part of you, then there is no external. Everybody is a part of you. And when that happens, this external collapses. It just becomes a part of our world. We do not live our worlds based on what's happening outside. We live our life based on the way we look at our life. So if there are 7 or 8 billion people in the world, each one of us is navigating this world in a whole different way, even though the world is the same, right? It's because we all look at the world differently. And so really it's about how we look at life, and if we realize that everything is part of our internal world, even when things are happening outside, in terms of how we look at those external events. But what ultimately this means is that happiness is you. Thank you. So the eighth commandment that I had, which I didn't put here, is that do not blame anyone for any behavior whatsoever. And that's a very hard one. I think it's been about 4 or 5 years since I had that. And I find that our propensity is to blame whenever things go wrong, right? When things go wrong, we tend to blame people very quickly. And what that blame does is that it takes away power from us. We have no control over it, right? And also the person who's blaming will immediately withdraw. The blaming does not solve things at all. But when we choose not to blame, but to take responsibility, that maybe what that person did might have been because of series of circumstances, right? Then the power comes back. So in the Ramayana story, Kaushalya, who's the mother of Rama, she said when she was asked years later that, do you have any ill feelings against Kaikeyi, the second wife, because of whom your son had to spend 14 years in the jungle? And she says, no, I have no ill feelings towards her at all, because things happen because of a certain context, because of a time and environment, and I have nothing to do with no blame to put towards her at all. So once we know that if people did certain things or said certain things because of circumstances or because they were afraid, and if we do not hold that against them, we get back the power within ourselves and we get back the compassion. Okay? And I just want to show you 1 or 2 more things. So I started writing this book on happiness in 2018, which I call Modeling Happiness, the 8 Lessons that I've learned. So it's like a work in progress. So these are so to the reader, you are beautiful, you are enough. This book is just a mirror. And these are the contents. So the 8 commandments are here now. And there's a prologue on what's happiness and the author's inner journey. And there's one making sense of it all. So this one is about the happiness talks and all those things. And so then I talk about what is happiness, but we cannot really understand happiness until we understand what is suffering, or what is dukkha. So we talk about how our life is like a water droplet, in the sense that people are eventually life is kind of very fleeting for us in the earth, and this is talking about the fleeting nature of life, which makes us appreciate happiness much more. And so I talk about what is happiness. I ask the reader to write their own idea of happiness initially, and then talk about the toxicity of happiness. When people are going through a tough time, and we say that, oh, you must be happy. How can you be sad? That's a toxicity of happiness. That people need to feel what they're feeling, right? And we have to create a safe space for people to feel what they're feeling at any given point in time. So there are some more things here. There's this poem that I wrote called A Bucket Full of Happiness. Maybe I'll read it to you. I feel like taking a bucket full of happiness and pouring it all over you. You, yes, you who's dealing with pain. I want to show you the cherry blossoms and the rainbow. I want to teach you how to talk freely, to laugh heartily, and to sing your heart out. I want to hug you tight and tell you everything will be all right. You who is dealing with loss, you who is a prisoner of your own words, you who is holding on to grudges, you who is letting a judgment banish a loved one from your heart, you who is weighed by hurt feelings and injured relationships. I want to help you forgive and embrace, and to heal and mend. I want to help you untangle the knots of your heart. You who is overworked, whose knees given to the weight of expectations, you who is grappling with chronic pain, you who bravely gets up to face one more day, you who feels tired with years catching up, with thinning hair and wrinkling skin, or not the best of health. I want to make you a bench by the flowers and the stream for you to rest and rejuvenate, and sit by your side to make you feel better. You who is tired of faking and pretending and putting on a mask to look strong, I want to tell you that I won't judge you, and I will protect you, and that it's okay for you to be seen, to be vulnerable. You who has no arms coming forward to help you, I want to tell you that you're enough. You who is tired of waiting and waiting some more, you who is feeling misunderstood and unloved or abandoned, I want to tell you that love will nourish you, and love will keep you together. So cheer up, my friends, sit up and smile. It's a bright new day, ready to greet and love you. If there's no one else for you, I'm right here now for you. Thank you. Yeah, so the book has a lot more, and it's a work in progress, but I just wanted to show some of it to you. So thank you, and have a good summer, and I'll let you know once I finish grading.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you please look over my code or just help me out a little bit?
Yep.